Good morning, our students, and welcome to this discussion. Today, we'll be looking at trend and measurement of what of trend. Remember that in one of our previous classes, we already had discussed trend as a component of time series. And in that class, we did say that components of time series are those forces that are behind changing time series observations, because the values of time series observations over time are not always the same thing. And the question is, what are those things that are responsible to making the values of time series not to be the same across time? And we say that those forces responsible are what we consider to be the components of what of time series. And a trend was one of the components of the time series that we discussed in that class. And in the class, we did say that trend is a long-term general average movement of a time series observation. It's a long-term, it's a general movement of the average of what of the series over time. That was the definition we gave the word the trend. And then before a proper time series analysis should be done, the effect of these components of time series ought to be estimated and removed from the data in order to study the true behavior of the series. And of course, you cannot remove something without you being able to correctly quantify the effect which that particular thing have on that series. And that's the reason why today we are talking about measurement of what of trend. How we can measure the effect of what trend before we can then talk about removing this effect of what of trend from the time series what observations now in order to carry out time series what analysis. That's what we have on the board today, measurement of what of a trend. Okay? There are various ways through which trend can be measured. And those various ways are number one. Talk about number one. What we call the freehand or graphical method. Freehand, free hand, or graphical method. Graphical method. We equally have number two. In the number two, we have what we call semi-average method. Semi-average method. Semi-average method. And then in the number three, we have what we call the moving average method. Moving average method. Moving average method. And then the fourth one, we have what we call the least square method, or what we call method of least square, whichever way you put it, least square method. Square method. These are ways through which we can measure the effect of what of a trend in time series what data or observation. Okay, today in this class, we are going to look at the freehand method and equally look at what at semi-average method. So in case you are asked to enumerate method or ways through which we can measure trend in time series what analysis, you talk about the freehand, you talk about the semi-average method, you talk about the moving average method, and you talk about the least square method. But then we want to take them one after the other and discuss them. So today we are looking at the freehand or graphical method. We are equally going to look at the semi-average method. Then these two, we are now going to have a separate class for it because it's a little bit larger in terms of what outline. So permit me to clean this one while we start with a graphical method. So I have this way. Okay, of course you know what is called a freehand. In freehand, we are not using any kind of tool to determine something. We are just using freehand to do that. And of course, it has procedures of using this freehand to fit a trend on a time series worth data. And that procedure is number one, or what we call A or I, number I. Plot the data, plot the time series data. The time series data against time, against time, t. Okay? Plot the time series data against time t. That is the first thing you do there. The number I, okay? Draw a smooth curve to join all the points already plotted. So, draw a smooth curve, smooth curve to join all the points already plotted. That is now the second stage. The third stage, which is I, says examine the curve to be able to determine the direction of what of the trend. Examine the trend or the curve to determine the direction of the curve, the direction of the trend. Then IV, which is the fourth one, when you are done examining the curve to determine the direction of what of the curve, you are going to draw a straight line along that trend such that the line you are going to draw will be able to connect maximum number of points. Draw a straight line, draw a straight line, to connect maximum number of points. Maximum number of what? Of points. These are the procedures of doing the freehand or graphical method of measuring the what? The trend. And we have just enumerated this in terms of what? Sentences. We are going to use graph or drawing to illustrate what we mean by all these procedures. So you permit me to write down the procedures while we use what? A graph or a diagram to actually showcase all what we have written here. What we mean by that statement that we had earlier talked about on the freehand is this. You draw a line this way, or you draw your axis this way. Okay, this is y of t, talking about the observations, the time series what? Observations. Here you are talking about what? T. That is now the time. Okay. The first step there said that we should plot the time series observations against what? Time. These are the time series observations, and the y-axis, this is what? Time for the horizontal axis. Let us assume that you have points like this. You have points like this. You have points like this. Okay? You have points like this. You have points like this. You have points like this. You have point this way. So you have been able to plot the time series observations against time. The second step says, draw a smooth curve to join all the points already plotted. So you are going to draw a smooth curve that is going to join all these points. The curve goes this way, goes this way. Okay. So I have drawn a curve which of course joined all the points plotted there. The third one says I should examine this curve to be able now to determine the direction of what of the trend. And when I'm done doing that, I should use a straight line to connect maximum number of points. Okay? So I have a point this way, I have a point this way, I have a point this way. I have a point this way, I have a point this way, so I can fit my straight line somewhere like this. Okay? I can fit it somewhere like this. Because this straight line join these points, it join this point, and it join these points. If you talk about this one, you only connect two. Though even if you talk about this one, you can equally collect what three. And that's the reason why in the use of freehand, you can see a lot of trends drawn by people differently, but they might be estimating almost the same thing. So this is what we mean by freehand. Okay? I am going to quickly clean this while we discuss on the semi-average method. Semi-average method. In the semi-average method, that's number 2. Semi-average method. Semi-average method. First of all, we are equally going to enumerate the procedure for carrying out the semi-average method. And the number 1 of the procedure says that I should divide the data sets into 2 equal halves. Okay? Situation whereby the data set is odd, you can skip the central or the middle value in order to be able to divide the data set into 2 equal halves. So I have number I, divide the data set into 2 equal halves. Into 2 equal halves. And like I earlier said, if our data points becomes odd, remove the middle observation in order to be able to divide it into 2 equal halves. The number II, he say obtain the average of each of the halves. Obtain the average of each half. Okay? Then we have III. In the III, we now say plot each of the average, okay, at the midpoint of each half. Plot each of the average, each of the average at the midpoint of each half. Of each what? Half. Then we have IV. In the IV, we now say, use a straight line to join the average plotted in each half. Use a straight line. Use a straight line to join the plotted points. Let me use that language. The plotted points to join the plotted points. These are, of course, the stages of or the procedures for semi-average methods. So you are equally going to allow me to clean down. We use now a real data set to be able to illustrate what we mean by here. So I'm going to clean here and call up questions on the board while we now try to do what we have said here. So permit me to clean here and equally clean this place. Let us call up a real life question here, even though my marker is becoming fainty, but let's see the much that it can carry us. Look at a data set here. That data set is this. This is A. This is A. That data set says Y of T. Then we have what we call, this is YR, talking about Y. Oh, this data is, the ink is quite fainty. Then we now talk about what? Y of what? Of T. So here I have what we call 2001, which I'll write as O1. 2002, I'll write O2. 2003, I'll write O what? 3. 2004, I'll write as O4. 2005, O5. And then 2006, I'll write O6. The value of this series at 2001 is 105. The value in 2002 is 115. The value here is 120. Value here is 1. This is 120 for 03. Okay, 2001, 2000. Okay. Then I have 2007. This data set actually began from 2000, which I will write as O. This is my O1. This is my O1. This one becomes O2. This is O3, O4, O5, and then we have O6. Okay, this is 115, which means here becomes my Y of R, referring to Y. This is my Y of T, referring to the observations. My O3 now is 100. This one is 110. This is 125. And this is 135. The question here says, fit a trend line by method of semi-average. Fit, that's the question. Fit a trend line by the method of semi-average. By the method of semi-average. Okay? What we are going to do here is simple. The first question or the first procedure says that we should divide the data set into two equal halves. That's the first procedure. Okay? Now let us count our observations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the data we have at hand is odd, a number. So we are going to remove the middle number in order now to have two equal halves. So I have 1, 2, 3. I have 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to skip this one. So the first set of observation here for the first half, this is for the second half. So this is my first half as a word of solution. Okay. My first half here, first half. This is my second half. Okay. The observations I have in my first half is 105, 115, 120. Observations I have in the second half is 110, 125, and then 135. The second thing there says that we are to get the average of each of the what of the halves. So let us now get their totals now, or the average is now going to be 105 plus 115 plus 120 all over 3. The answer which I have here is 113.3. So this one becomes 110, 125, 135 all over 3. The answer which I have here is this is 123.3. 123.3. Okay? So I've gotten the average of the first half, average of the second half. And they say we should plot these averages at the midpoint of each of the halves. So we now come and we have a line this way. Then we have a line this way. So here is my y of t, and here is my what? My time. Okay? Do remember that this time starts from 01, 02, that is O for 2000, 01 for 2001, this is for 2003. So you can have something like O here, 01 here, 02 here, 03 was skipped. So you now have what is called what? O what 4. Even if you put that 03 there, it will not be used. Here is our 04, here is our 05, and here is our 06. The midpoint of this one is here. So we trace this value 113 and we plot it again this 01. Let me say it is somewhere here. Then this one is 123. So we trace it here. The midpoint is going to be this one. And you know that 123 is greater than what? 113. So it's going to be a bit taller. You have it this way. So they say use a straight line to join the 2 points. You use a straight line to join the 2 points. They say extend the points. You have extended the points. So this is how to fit a trend line using the approach of a semi-average method. Assuming that this observation given to us is an even set of observation, we are not going to skip the central value. Instead, we just divide the lines into 2 equal halves and be able now to fit our trend using this approach which we used in this one. Thank you very much. Stay tuned while we meet in our next class where we should be looking at the moving average method and then the least square method. Thank you very much for your audience for today.